all my life. Been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life I've been grinding all my life. Look, all my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life I've been grinding all my life. Look, I'm married to this game. That's who I made my wife. Said I die alone.
What's up? What's up? What's up? It's the International Football Bros. You got Sam here with the Hatteras Bay Mad Goats. And you got Nate with the Stellenbosch Saints. You can find me at KingSam_FF. Find Nate over here at Nate the Saint FF. How's it going, Nate?
Hey, Sam. Yeah, no, it's good. It's been a decent week, and I sort of trimmed the beard, trying to look for the fresh new kid on the block look. But no, it's been all right. How are you keeping?
You look fresh, man. I like it. I got to shave tomorrow for work, so I'll be right just like you next couple hours. So
nice. No, good, man.
Hey, so what we've been doing, we've been breaking down the Pigskins Positional Rankings. We've gone through each conference. For those of you that haven't been on, Matt, he buys this rankings that he does every year. This is the second year running now. He used to do it, but he's outsourced it, and we really greatly appreciate it. And what we were able to do is we just kind of taking what those guys do, the Rate My League guys, and just kind of breaking it down into the nuances that we see within our league. And we've been blessed to be able to have some guests on. So we have a guest on again today. I'm gonna go ahead and bring him in. So the one, the only, the man that bought the Rate My League guys, we got Matt, Philadelphia Pigskins at MZKP54. What's up, Matt? How you doing?
I'm back, baby.
Can't get enough of it.
Yeah. So yeah, man, I was just explaining to everybody that hey, we've really enjoyed just what you bring onto the league, this Rate My League guy stuff. Anytime anybody tries to talk about ratings, it's controversial. It's hard to pin down anything. I think Greg coined the phrase last episode that hey, rankings in July don't mean shit. So, but it's still fun to talk about. It's still fun to look at, and so thank you for putting those on. How do you like those guys? You like the end product you're getting from them, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as long as you kind of go in knowing what it is, then it's enjoyable. I think that what I find interesting about it is they just have kind of their system that they pump it out, and then they kind of just like talk through teams in order. It seems like they disagree with more than they agree with when they're talking through their own rankings. But no, I mean, it's fun, and I feel like they do a pretty good job of like for what they can get out of a league as intricate as roster wars. But the one thing I do disagree with is that rankings in July do matter, and being the off-season champ is pretty much arguably better than being an actual champion.
I mean, you don't get money from it, but you get the crown to wear for a lot longer, right?
I mean, people talk about it it's really what everyone aspires to is the prettiest team in July. So those like games happen, but draft capital and rookies, that's what it's all about.
Greg was the one that coined that phrase, and we got a viewer. We got Greg. He says he likes Greg, so we got Greg and Tyler in the house, so appreciate you boys for tuning in. So yeah, man. And Nate, you got anything to add about the Rate My League guys and what we see from them and what we get from them every year?
No, I think it's been a great series, and I think it's been a good addition to the league from sort of the main league to the futures league. It's been something to talk about, to discuss, and it's good that everyone sort of is jumping on the bandwagon, whether it's through the pod here or whether it's sort of on the article itself, and it's sort of food for thought for everyone, sort of how they're setting up their teams, what they're looking at, what they value, and it's interpreting it the way you sort of want to. But no, I think it's been a great addition. Maybe sort of polarizing in certain views, but it's good to keep people thinking.
Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and bring the slides in that we're going to talk about. So this is the like we talked about the International Football Bros. We're talking about the DD review of the Pigskins Positional Rankings. As we've done with the past ones, the first couple slides we're just going to go over like how they ranked everybody. This is their dynasty rankings, and then we'll go over their redraft rankings. So for dynasty, the way the Rate My League guys they had Tom as the number one spot. A lot of Chapter 1 guys with Nick, the Dragons, the Africans, the Gadabouts, the Degenerates, Minnesota, and Slashers. Then the Nighthawks, Mayhem, Skigo Muskies, and then the bottom guy sporting our pink as per our league rules is the Silver Ballers, and he's gonna be rocking it this year. And we're going to get into it. He may be rocking it again next year. But those are their dynasty rankings. Do you guys see anything crazy about how they rank those guys for dynasty?
Far away, Matt.
I gotta dive into the teams a little bit, but I'm sure that we'll get the,
Okay.
Andy will say this is crazy. Everyone will think that their team's wrong. I think the only thing that really stands out is obviously Nick shouldn't be that high. But other than that, Dragons usually towards the top. Africans has put a good run together. Degenerates in the top half. That's what he's been working for 10 years. It's just being a top half team. So got to feel good about that. But no,
we're going to talk about Rob when he gets to we get to his team. But I think he's been doing a lot of good moves this last offseason to help him at least stay out of that pink area. So, all right. So the next one is the redraft rankings, and once again they got some of the same people up at the top with Tom, Nick, John, the Africans, the Eternals and Slashers move up. The Gadabouts move down. The Nighthawks, Degenerates, and the last three, I think, pretty much stay the same: Mayhem, Muskies, and the Silver Ballers. So this is just what they have, who they have. They think is going to win the DD side for this year based off of their rankings or their charts and everything of what these rosters look like today, which we know they're going to change and injuries are going to happen and it's going to be wildly different.
Yeah.
All right, so what we normally do, the format we do is we'll break it down. We'll go from last to first. So we got the Silver Ballers as last. So we'll break down his team and look at it and talk about like what his roster is, what his draft capital is, and what he's looking like. So the left-hand side is his roster. You see there's he's not carrying a lot of players right now on his roster. He's only got, 38, 39. And then but he's got some good draft capital with 1 first and 4 seconds. Unfortunately, that first is not his own because he is still predicted to be the last in the league for DD and the last in the league for all of the main league for redraft purposes. And then the right-hand side up there is the GOAT's positional rankings and the projections. And you can see I got him finishing as the worst team in DD. And later on, we'll get to it over DD and TT. But he's definitely in that pink stink race. So Silver Ballers. Instantly what jumps off of me is Mac Jones, Jimmy G is your quarterbacks. Not the best. And then I can't even tell you what starting running back he's going to go with. Is, A-Chain, the rookie, going to be his best running back? Like, there's some problems here, in my opinion. What do you, Nate? What do you see when you look at this?
Yeah, I think those are the first sort of alarm bells. Look, I think the Super Suckers realize it's going to be a tough season. They've obviously taken the flag of the pink and they're thinking like hell, and next year is going to be a tough year. But yeah, those are big alarm bells at quarterback and running back. Obviously, the draft capital, they've got 1 first, as you mentioned earlier, not their own. So it should be, it's quite a difficult position here, I think, for them. And I think they don't have many elite pieces either to sort of trade with and play around with. I'm just trying to have a quick look here what sort of Warbucks they're sitting on, and they're sitting on 55, so not one of the richer teams either in the DD. So I don't know. It's going to be a slower rebuild than I think they hoped for, and it's going to take a while. It's going to take a couple of seasons. Obviously, they've done pretty well, I think, with Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnson, who I like both those players. I'm also sort of optimistic that George Pickens does sort of compete with Deontay Johnson, if not maybe even take over the sort of leading role there in Pittsburgh. They like to sort of pass it around. Zay Flowers as well. I think considering last year, I think they've done well to sort of attack the wide receiver position. But I think they're going to need to sort of move things around. They really have to hope that Brandon Cooks is going to break out massively in Dallas and they can get something in return for him. They're going to have to hope maybe Hayden Hurst has a career season in Carolina, but these are sort of real home run hits. Defensive wise, also not great at linebacker. TJ Edwards is good, but I think Tremaine Edmonds there as well. He's not going to get elite amount of points. A couple of players on the taxi squad. Yeah, it's not too pretty. I think it's going to it's going to be a tough, slow rebuild. And he's just going to have to do his homework on his second round picks in 2024 and try and move things around and try and pick up firsts when he can. But there's not much to play around with. I don't know. Is there much more that you want to add there, Matt?
You obviously didn't hear that all of his rookie receivers are going to be instant studs, is apparently his belief about this team. But no, I mean, I think you pretty much hit it. I mean, this team is my pink insurance policy. So that's they make me feel better about a rebuild because, I mean, Jimmy G and Mac Jones, like, I think they are what they are at this point.
I will say Jimmy G just got the clean bill of health earlier today, so
he did. I mean, you know, as long as that lasts, and I think that Mac Jones is. I think he is what he is, even though I'm sure Tyler's in the chat saying something crazy about him. But I think that like that running back situation is bleak, and I feel like I saw a stat somewhere about rookie receivers. But I mean, honestly, like I think that all these receivers that he has can all have what would be considered a good season, and like none of them be higher than like wide receiver 20 on the year. And I feel like that's where we're going to land at. Like you can have promise and you can have like a good future here, but for this year, I don't see much. And also only having 2 linebackers. I just think that this team isn't built to score points. I mean, it's built to maybe like have some pieces that hit in a couple of years. I'm curious to see what he does with his contracts with so many rookies. Like how many years is he going to commit to all of them? But yeah, no, I mean, listen, Derek, keep on sucking so that those of us who want to rebuild don't have to worry about pink. So I appreciate you at least. Just like keep tearing this shit down. Like, you know what? The one thing, I don't think you have enough Packers. You need some more Packers on this team, and some more cornerbacks. And like, listen, like it's you got the right plan here. So just keep only do this.
Yeah,
man, I agree. I think he invested wisely though with wide receivers because we know that if they hit, they're going to hit. So he's got some assets that if they do mature are going to be good for him. But as far as this year, like you said, his team is the pink insurance. Anybody that wants to collapse for Caleb and try to go and get that number 1 pick, like you have the insulated value of Derek's team is most likely going to suck. So you don't have to. Hopefully, you can beat him out and not have to sport the pink, but still rebuild your roster and get that. Because if you're not first, you're last. So why not go ahead and try to get that draft capital and get those higher end players? So, but Derek, I'm sorry we weren't nicer. It doesn't look good, buddy.
I'm not sorry.
All right, next one up, number 11 is Dan and the Muskies. And I must say, the thing that glaringly stands out to me is this: he's got no first round, no second round picks next year, and no first round picks in the following year. And for being a team that is already like down in the rankings, that you're just, it seems like it's a hole he's got to dig himself out of. But statistically, projection wise, he does look to fare better than the Silver Ballers. So there's that. But I still think the Muskies have got a long ways to go. Like, look at the quarterback situation. Like Sam Howell is your second best quarterback, and then Jordan Love. Like, you're just putting a lot of promise in there. Yeah, he's got some issues. He's got some things to work with. Nate, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, sort of agree. I think it's not pretty either. But I have sort of pinpointed a few players there that I think at least carry value, and carry sort of win now value, breakout value, and players that, look, this team, let's not beat around the bush, without those sort of draft picks, this team is not going to win any titles in the near future at all. But there are players there that could help other teams win. And I'm sort of talking about a Danny Jones. Obviously, he's only got 1 year left in his contract now. And it will be quite an interesting situation for the Muskies and seeing whether or not they try cash in on a player like Daniel Jones, if he starts, if he gets running. sort of keep their two future sort of quarterbacks, Jordan Love, Sam Howell. Not that Dan Jones will have a shorter career. It's just he's only on a 1-year contract with them. So they'll have to sort of think cleverly around sort of the contracts that they do have. I think they've got a few possible breakout candidates at running back. I think obviously sort of Alexander Mattison's opportunity here. I think Pacheco obviously broke out last year. Whether or not he can sort of keep that up in a Chiefs team could be interesting, as well as Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson could have a bit of a wrestle there in Washington. So, look, I do think there are players here that will gain value through the season, assuming they sort of hit the ground running. And I think the Muskies are just going to have to leverage that, and they're going to have to trade to sort of improve this roster because, yeah, there's just a lot of mediocrity there. There's a lot of sort of bits and pieces. It's a deep squad. So, look, having a deep squad when you are rebuilding helps for sort of breakout guys, but he's going to have to move things around. And, yeah, that draft capital is worrying because I can't see much elite value there, even from some of the rookies that were drafted. If you sort of look at Aiden O'Connell, McBride, what you've got Xavier Hutchinson, A.T. Perry, Marvin Mims is probably the best of the bunch there, and even that's not spectacular. So I don't know. I think it's going to be tough. I can see this team being down there, but this team is still considerably better than the Super Suckers. So yeah, I think they might welcome sort of 11th, but they're going to need to make moves to sort of that draft capital issue. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Matt?
I don't like this team at all. I don't know what Dan's doing. I talked last time I was on with you guys about kind of how I approach rebuilds, and I think that when you look at the players that he's choosing to build around, since he obviously doesn't have draft capital, they're like, they have some upside to your point, Nate, but like they are all so risky. And they do not have insulated value whatsoever. And as I go through his team, like Daniel Jones, Sam Howell, Jordan Love, like if any of them come out and shit the bed, like I feel like Daniel Jones is the best of that bunch. I know you love him, Sam, but like I'm sure, as you know from trade offers you've gotten for him, like he's someone that half people out there just like they're haters.
Oh, there's no market, man. Like you have to be invested in Daniel Jones and ride it. So
like Sam Howell, Jordan Love, like, yeah, sure, they could all be good, but if they're not, like the value just tanks.
Yeah.
You look at his running backs, like Algiers already gone. We have Madison and Pacheco and Brian Robinson and Devin Singletary. All of them are like teetering on the edge because if they don't come out and produce, then if this was my team, I would try and sell all 4 of them before the season started, because if they get hurt, if they come out and don't produce, if anything goes wrong, then you're not going to get the same kind of like aspirational value that they have right now. And similar, and I think that like best case scenario, like maybe Madison comes out, lights it up, and you can get a first for him. But like I think I'd rather just like build up some draft capital, because none of these guys are going to be worth anything in 2 years. And again, looking at receivers, I mean, taking a glance through, I guess Ayuk's probably the best of them here, and Ayuk's getting a ton.
Ayuk's worth at least 2 firsts.
Ayuk's getting a ton of hype this offseason, and I've had people in other leagues tell me they want 2 firsts for Ayuk. And I mean, listen, no one likes a good hype train like I do, but I think that Ayuk's one of those guys who like he's getting all these offseason blurbs, like everyone's talking about him like he's the shit, but like, is Ayuk ever going to be better than like wide receiver 15? Like, I just don't see a world where he's ever going to like enter that next level of producer or value. So like, I would cash out on hype there.
Tyler asked if you would trade Sam Howell. I think you already addressed it. Say, yeah, you would trade Howell and Love, right? Yeah.
Yep. I would trade Howell. I'd trade Love. Ayuk, Madison. If you can get anyone given 2 firsts. I mean, look at this. Like Dobbs, Hodgins, like all these receivers, like Juju, like just get out from all of them, because if they don't produce, you're stuck holding the bag here.
Well, so Brad and Tyler both mentioned that that Dan went 5-7 last year, and Brad thinks his luck ran out, and I went and looked. Dan won games. He won 2 games against the Silver Ballers, who was dead last. So we just ranked, so that's 2. he went 2 against the Mayhem, who she's next in our rankings, and then he had 1 game against the Degenerates. And Rob he'd had a lot of draft capital that he used this year that kind of pulled him up from the bottom of the rankings. So yeah, you add those teams up, it makes sense why he was able to squeak out 5 wins.
Quite a favorable schedule,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at a quick scroll, he also had the second worst all play in all of the main league. So
he didn't win those games by a large margin. It was like skin of his teeth. But I definitely thought he was going to be in the running for Pink. I was one of the ones as well, and I mean, he got 5 wins, and I was amazed. I don't think that's happening again this year.
No, I think he'll be in the running for Pink more than he's in the running for 4 wins this year.
What he does have going with him, I think, is the Silver Ballers in his conference. I got to go back and look. No, he's done. He doesn't have Silver Ballers, so he's only got Silver Ballers once. So
it's good to Mayhem, yeah.
All right, so we'll go to the next one, which is Carla and the Mayhem. This is weird seeing Carla down this low. Usually, you see her and she's got a roster built that's either a contender or it's better than this. I don't necessarily think it's horrible, but I do these last 3 for Derek, for Dan, and for Carla. I had them ranked similarly as what the Rate My League guys said. And she's got some good pieces. I think adding CJ Stroud to her quarterback room is definitely going to benefit her with Fields and Russell. If Russell can come back and do something with Sean Payton, I know I own him in a couple leagues, and I'm hoping that that's the case. I liked her pick of Tank Bigsby. I think she made some very smart picks. I think she made some very smart acquisitions, and I think some things go right. She can surprise and actually have a higher ranking than what she's got here. But what do you guys think about Carla's team?
Yeah, Matt, you fire away first.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a world where I'm looking at the starting lineup, and this could come out and not be in 10th. I'm not sure if I see a playoff team here, though. So I think that kind of similarly, you're kind of at a crossroads here. And Sam and I, we were talking a little bit before the show where, people always say, like, wait for the season to sell. That's when you're going to get the best value. I'm of the opposite belief. Like, get ahead of it, like corner the market on rebuilds. And the longer you wait, the more people are going to say, this isn't my year and I want picks. And as I look at this team, I see players like Mixon, like Lockett, like Lazard. I mean, I see some players here who I'd probably be trying to cash in on, and I would probably lean towards kicking off a rebuild sooner than later. I think Justin Fields is another interesting one because I think everyone's forgotten just how bad he was at the beginning of last year. And I think that people are conflating fantasy value with NFL value. And I think that, Justin Fields could be a really, really good quarterback this year for fantasy. He could even be the quarterback 1. But if he doesn't go out and win some games for the Bears, I'm not sure how long his tenure is going to be. So he's someone with he's going to the first round of startups right now. So if you want to kick off a rebuild, see what kind of value you can get there. I think that there's some pieces here that you could turn around and really be in a good shape moving forward.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I like Carla's sort of quarterback room there. I'm obviously a little bit higher on Wilson than consensus. I do think he will sort of bounce back this year. And CJ Stroud will get the opportunity in Houston. We'll all be sort of down to him. Sort of repeating pretty much what you guys said. I think there's enough here to sort of look at. Definitely not a sort of playoff team. And we'll need to sort of move things around, get trading, be aggressive. There are quite a few sort of, I think, opportunities on the defensive side as well. From his injury last year, Dexter Lawrence, for example, but I know some of these guys are also on sort of free contracts. So it'll be interesting to see sort of where Carla builds 2 seconds next year. She should have sort of a head start on the 2 teams below her, and her squad, in my opinion, is definitely has a much safer floor than the teams below her because of that sort of quarterback floor, really, in my opinion. But I think she'll need to sort of look at that running back situation. Javonte Williams, obviously, a very tough one to sort of grade at the moment, but could be one that sort of holds value, keeps value, even retains decent value. But yeah, I'm not terribly excited about this team, though. I think it's closer to sort of the bottom two that we've just seen than the tier above it. She'll need to sort of hit on her draft capital and try and make moves on players with a bit of hype as well. But yeah, there's not much that terribly excites me, especially at wide receiver. I don't like any of those players really. But that's just my sort of feeling with regards to Carla's situation at the moment.
I think the big difference you see between this team, Carla's team, and Dan's team, which was the last one, is kind of what you already addressed there, Matt, is that she has assets that has that value, the ancillary value that she can move. So like Justin Fields is an excellent one, Russell Wilson, Joe Mixon, like Dan just didn't have those names, and she already has draft capital to build. And then you take the risk on, what's CJ Stroud going to be? Is Rachaad White going to take that job and run with it? Is Javonte Williams really back from that ACL? So she's got some pieces here that has a bright future, but I agree. And that's because I'm in the mindset that if I'm not competing, then what's the point of me just being middle of the road? If it was my roster, I definitely would be looking at selling like a Mixon, a Lockett, those kind of type of players just to see what I can get, just to help me out for follow-on years, because she could surprise. But the surprise really is like you're hoping upon hopes that you get in as the number 6, but I still don't see it. So this is a middle of the road team, probably high percentage not making the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, I think when you look at it, like how many pieces on here are going to be worth more a year from now? Like I think the IDP side's in pretty good shape. I think Stroud's in pretty good shape. I think there's some other guys who, Fields may have peaked at value. Mixon's a good sell. And again, she has that silver baller insurance. So he may as well, if there's a year to do it.
Now's the year. Unfortunately, Brad's got that silver ballers pick, and we'll get to him eventually. But the next one is not Brad. The next one is Rob, the Las Vegas Degenerates. They had him ranked 9th. We know Rob is always being close to last, flipping burritos at Chipotle and raking leaves in the middle of the night. But I really like what he did this year in this draft, man. Like he had a big need at quarterback. He went out and got A-Rich and Bryce Young to go with Kirk Cousins, who is a stellar quarterback 2, some high-end quarterback 1s at some weeks, and Geno. But I think he's building this thing the right way. I think it's crazy to think about with Rob, but I think his roster is in the right direction. I got him ranked as 8th, so I got him ranked a little higher than what they had him ranked as. But my rankings also are very high on A-Rich, so that could be it. But what do you guys think? I think Kenneth Walker. I think Miles Sanders. I'm not a big Cam Akers guy, but I love Devontae and I love Drake London. I think he's got some good young pieces here that he's building in the right direction.
Yeah, I think as you said, Sam, sort of if you look sort of at it, how his draft sort of materialized, he had obviously 102, 103, and hit the quarterbacks, say Rich and Bryce Young, and then sort of 210 went for Roshkin Johnson, who people are sort of hyping in the offseason at the moment, could be something. Tajay Spears is probably a good handcuff, Jalen Hyatt. So I think, as you say, Rob did well in the draft, and I think if you look at those running backs, it's quite deeper than you realize. You've obviously got someone like Akers, assuming Dalvin Cook lands somewhere, Elijah Mitchell as an absolute backup, not really, but Miles Sanders should get a decent volume in Carolina, and Kenneth Walker. It will be interesting to see how Seattle tend to use Kenneth Walker and sort of obviously Zach Charbonnet going into this year, and what that sort of offense looks like, because they've obviously added quite the JSN on the offensive side as well, at wide receiver. So it might be sort of held around a bit more timeshare. I don't think we'll see. I think we might see Kenneth Walker regress slightly, but we just know Seattle will ground and pound, and there will be enough volume there. It's just whether or not there's enough solo volume for Kenneth Walker to be elite, or whether it's going to be a timeshare. Wide receiver wise as well, Drake London's a nice piece. I think it'll be interesting to see sort of how Desmond Ridder sort of goes this year with the full sort of off season as the starter, whether he sort of hits the ground running. But that could also sort of go the other way, because if Ridder doesn't really materialize, then Drake London could be a bit of a situation where maybe is a trade option here where you do look to try and get something back for him. But I think wide receiver is probably where he's looking at upgrading where he can. He's got the single first and 24. He's got the 2 first and 25. He's got the 2 seconds in 24 as well. So
yeah, and I actually misspoke, and Brad corrected me. Rob has got Silver Ballers first, the 1-1, not him.
Okay.
So I mean, I look at his roster and these quarterbacks pan out. He probably doesn't need Caleb, but like that is a piece he can sell for a buttload.
Yeah. I'm sure come the draft 2024, assuming, as you say, that should be the 101, he'll be fending off offers. I think they'll be inundated. But look, I like this team. I think we suddenly sort of jumping into a different tier. And I think the first 3 teams that we saw were in their own sort of bottom 3 tier. And this team is considerably better. And I think it's just that sort of volume at running back is strong enough to carry them. They've got serviceable linebackers. Nakobe Dean, we hope, sort of breaks out, or we hope it. We sort of expect him to break out a bit this year. Even Devin Lloyd has volume. Patrick Queen, although it's in a contract year, we could well see Patrick Queen move on from Baltimore in the offseason and head somewhere else next year, which could be an interesting option. But I like this team. I think this team, as you say, is heading in the right direction. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, good for Rob. I'm glad he's finally at the point where we're not talking about him like we're talking about Derek's team. I think that he's done a good job putting this offense together. I think that he has good depth at quarterback, good depth at running back. I think that he has a couple solid receivers, and then some depth there with some shots. I worry a little bit about this IDP side, if he is thinking about trying to make the playoffs this year. I think, to your point, there's a couple of decent pieces here, but I think that he's kind of taken the let's get this offense together approach.
Smart,
which is the way to do it. I do find it interesting to just like, I'm not digging up like all the reports and everything, but I mean, I don't see very many zeros for contracts on the IDP side. So it seems like he didn't add too many IDP players. So, I think that if you're ready to kind of like round out a rebuild, I think that's when in RFA you attack IDP a little bit more. So maybe that's kind of, he's thinking of like pickups or trades or getting into that next year. But that's where I would kind of be worried about if I was this team. Is one, I would try and upgrade tight end to one of the top few, and I'd be trying to get some solid IDP production, because I think that's the concern here. But I mean, you already talked about, like, he has 4 potentially startable quarterbacks, 4, maybe 5 running backs, some solid receivers. So listen, kudos Rob. Like, you finally got there, man, to the off season 8th place. So I know it's been a long journey, but no, I think that he's on the up and up. So
he's got the GOAT ranking of 8th place. He has the Rate My League guys of 9th. But it's
let's not go crazy. So you're out of the double digits, Rob. We're all proud of you, and hopefully in the fall it actually turns into some production on Sundays. So
Tyler made a point. He said that if it was him, and if it's looking like what we all think is like, and Derek's pick is going to be the 1-1, like you said, he's got 4 starting quarterbacks or startable quarterbacks. He'd look at selling them, and then we'll get to it eventually. But there's a couple teams up in the top that quarterback is like a dire need, and I think if Rob were to do that and play his cards right, he could just help vault that rebuild and this roster even further on quicker than what he normally would if he just stayed pat where he's at.
Yeah, I think just quickly, I think, as you say, like if that's the situation, why not sell Kirk Cousins? Because the other thing I just did notice very briefly, and this is a very, very, very future problem, but you've got Waddle, you've got Devontae Smith, you've got Drake London, you've got Kenneth Walker and Kirk Cousins all on the same contract with 4 years. And again, these are way down the line issues, 4 years time issues, but there will come a day that you'll need to balance those books, and we're assuming they're all 4 studs or 5 studs in 4 years time. But maybe that's something in the back of Rob's mind is moving around these guys on 4-year contracts.
Yeah, that's a good point. Our next team up is going to be Burn. I know he was in the audience. He was watching. They had him ranked as number 8. His roster's on the left. I hope Burn's still watching, because he can see that I had him ranked higher than what they had him as 6. but I do think Burns got some issues with depth. It's hard to not look at this roster and just automatically think, like, man, that's sexy. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, like that's gonna keep him in some games no matter what every week. But outside of the starters that I have listed over on the right, like I think he's got some depth issues. He's got a first in 24. He's got a first in 25. So he's there. So my ranking of him as a fringe playoff team, I think he's probably in that 6 to 8 range when I look at everything, and it's just going to be how the cards fall for him. But what do you guys when you look at and you see this? What do you think?
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on. I mean, I think when you look at even just the snapshot of his starting lineup, the color change from green to gray is very early, and it's a big drop off there. I think that this is a prime team that if I was in Burns' shoes, I'd be trying to tear down with Najee and Adams, either turn them into 2 players or turn them into a player and a pick that you can then flip for another player. I think that as soon as you have Allen and Hurts, you're in a window where you want to try and make some moves. But I think that, like, if this is what your week 1 lineup looks like once buys and injuries start hitting, you're going to be throwing some pretty weak players out there. So I think I think you're spot on. That's going to be the thing that holds Burn back right now.
Echoing what you just said, Matt. I think, there are 2 ways of playing this. It's one, it's either deciding this is your window with Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts and going all in and trying to move things around somehow, somewhere. As you say, maybe splitting the depth of Devontae Adams and Najee Harris and trying to speculate on sort of maybe breakout players. Or the other option is flipping one of them, flipping a Hurts, flipping a Josh Allen, and then trying to create more depth then. But that's sort of taking a step or 2 back to sort of rebuild, as opposed to sort of taking the opportunity with both of them in a team at the moment. So, look, it's going to be, I think any team this year in the DD going up against Burn on week-to-week basis is going to be watching those 2 quarterbacks and making sure they don't put down 50 burgers. But apart from that, I think if you have a well-rounded team, you should be competing well against this team. But lots of players on the IDP side that, it could also add value. I think obviously Fred Warner, Pete Werner, Quay Walker. I like the linebackers. If this team adds 1 or 2 offensive pieces there and sorts out that depth, it could be a team that, 1, gets to the playoffs, and 2, has weeks in the playoffs that does well because it's got such home run hitters. But if it stays like this, it's going nowhere. But it needs to sort out that depth on the offensive side.
No, man, I couldn't agree more with both what you guys said. That I like Nico Collins, I like KJ Osborne, but like you're betting on spike weeks from them when you put them in your roster. So Allen and Hurts, they definitely can carry that load, but it's going to be dependent on what weeks happen and what weeks don't happen for you. So I couldn't agree more that if I'm Burned, I think I'm in this window. I'm looking at selling that 24 first, 25 first, and trying to add more offensive pieces because that IDP is good enough to go. And then if I think that I can't, then it's easy flip Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, and because Allen and Hurts are young enough that you don't have to. This doesn't have to be your window. You can still play for 2 years down the road. But he's got some assets to go either way, and I think I'd kind of let the first couple weeks play out and see what I want to do, and then put cards on the table and just choose a path and go with it. But next one up is the Whiskey Creek Gadabouts. So they had Brad as redraft ranking number 7. I actually had Brad a little lower in the rankings for the GOAT projections. Brad's got Patrick Mahomes, which is always sexy, Matthew Stafford, and Jared Goff leading his team. So he's got some good depth there at quarterback. Where I hit him at was running back. I'm looking at that running back outside of Bijan. Like, I like Montgomery. I like what Jared McKinnon can do in a PPR league, but it's they're both like and Rashad Penny if you can stay healthy. But there's a big ifs there at running back outside of Bijan, and Bijan's a rookie. I do like a lot of his wide receivers he's got going on. J-Mo kind of hurts him a little bit just because he's got that suspension, even though he's a good asset to have. Justin Ross is getting a lot of good pub right now. But, when you have you have Treylon Burks, and Gabriel Davis. Like, I think he's got some good pieces. But I just overall for the weekly lineup projections, I had him a little lower than what they had him at.
Yeah, I think the D Hop move to the Titans would have grated a little bit on Brad with Burks, but I think everyone's still pretty high on Burks, and I think Burks will be a success in Tennessee when they sort out obviously who's going under center. Yeah, great quarterbacks situation there. Might be worth looking at getting out of that Stafford contract. If you can. Obviously, we know Brad's a Lions man, so I'm sure he'll be loyal with Stafford to the end. But I wouldn't be surprised if he sort of floats the idea of sort of moving Stafford. Running back, as you say, Bijan. Who knows what could happen in Philly? Look, they've obviously taken on DeAndre Swift. They've got Rashad Penny there. They've got Kent Gainwell. Any one of those three could end up being the sort of leading guy. But it looks like DeAndre Swift has got the job out at the front. But yeah, I think it's going to be this team has got pieces now. I think, as you said, the JMO suspension is a bit annoying because if JMO was firing on all cylinders, you got a situation where you got JMO, JSN, Pittman, T. Higgins, Gabe Davis, and Traylon Burks. So you've got enough there. He needs his IDP to make sure that they're firing. But yeah, the one area that you've pointed out he needs a bit of help with is at that running back depth and adding someone else to Bijan, because that bye week of Bijan's could be interesting to see whether or not Monty is going to do anything in Detroit as well. What are your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Mahomes, Bijan, solid. Noticing you have Mahomes QB5, that's bold, Sam.
I do, yeah.
But I feel like the theme of this team is I like that player, but ... I feel like that's all I heard as y'all were going through it is like, oh, Burks, yeah, but Pittman, oh, JSN, JMO, Penny. Like, I feel like there's a lot of teams, a lot of players here who, like, I like them. But there's that like one thing hanging over them that I think one makes them a little briskier of an asset for the year, and two is the exact thing that people are going to say when you try and trade that player to them, where it's like if you try and trade them any of these players, they're only going to focus on that butt part of it and then try and drive the value down. So I think that Brad's a little bit stuck with what he has right now, because I think that's kind of like the part of the offseason where the market on players is kind of either the hype or the risk. And so I think that, I think Montgomery has a shot to get a shitload of touchdowns this year. I think that Penny, he could be solid in Philly because they don't really pass the ball to the running backs at all. T. Higgins, I think that he has some really solid players, but I think they also each have some of their question marks. So I'm curious to see how Brad does.
I mean, they got him ranked as one of the teams that is a fringe playoff team, and I think it's fair. I think it's kind of where he's at. I think if the cards fall right, you can see this team squeaking in the playoffs, and then once you get in the playoffs, like as long as you get that ticket to the dance, like you're there. You don't know what's going to happen. I think he's got a good roster. I just think that it doesn't compete with some of the other ones that are upcoming. And to be honest with you, I like the last one just a little bit better with Burns. So.
Yeah, look, I think he's also in one of or probably the easier chapter in terms of the DD. He's obviously going to be playing the Super Suckers twice. He's going to be up against sort of Burnside, who we've obviously touched base on now, has home run hitters, but the depth there is pretty questionable. So if Brad can turn those 4 results straight into 4 wins, you are in a situation where all you need is sort of 2-3 more victories and you can see yourself in the playoffs. So I do think there's a chance there. We'll obviously get on to Ian's Africans shortly and sort of review that side. But I think Brad is in a chapter here that could help him give himself punch a ticket into the playoffs. And then, as you say, once you're there, anything can happen on the weekend. So I think Brad will be aware of that, and I think he'll be trying to take advantage of that where he can. But yeah, it's going to need a bit of tinkering with.
All right, next one we got up. So this is what they projected as their top 6 that would make the playoffs is the Haddonfield Slashers. And I was actually quite surprised when I saw this. Well, I don't know, surprised is the right word, but it made me feel good because when Bob swapped over with Sty took over an absolute menace of a roster that he's trying to rebuild and trying to get on the right path. And when I see this roster, I'm like, oh man, Sty had a good team that he was building, and I think this is the first team we're getting to in Chapter 1. So I think we're going to see that Chapter 1 is just stacked with Murder's Row, and I think Sty probably looked at it like, hey man, I want to try something new. I want to, and Sty is that social butterfly that he likes to just have experiences with everybody. So it fit with his social atmosphere. It fit with maybe he just got sick of getting beat up in Chapter 1. But this team that Bob inherited is a lot better than the one that he was gonna inherit from Marks over in the TT. So I think it's got some promise. I had it ranked relatively close to what they had it ranked. I had it ranked the 7th, but he's got, Dak Prescott, like that right there. You're good. Quarterback situation is good. And then he went and he got Will Levis to go with Ryan Tannehill, so he's got the security. So I think quarterback situation is definitely on the up and up. It's not the best, but it's still good. Running backs, he got some pieces. Brees Hall, he's got the whole Jets. Like it seemed like this team, or whether it was Bob or it was Sty, they just like to get all the handcuffs at every position. But this is a team that is going to fall victim to playing 6 games against 3 competitors that are just brutal. And that's going to dictate, I think, it's going to make him fall out of the playoff race because playing against Andy, playing against Nick, even though Nick sucks, playing against John, like that's brutal. But when you look at his roster, what do you guys think?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that there's a lot of it's interesting because it's like a balance of solid young pieces and some players who are kind of on their last leg. So I mean, I think it's a team that looks like it's put together to try and compete. I agree. I think that their biggest issue is probably just going to be like, are they quite there yet? And I think that how's Brees going to come back from injury? What's going to be the deal with how's Connor going to handle like a god awful team? Is Darren Waller going to stay healthy? I mean, I think if everything clicks for this team, there's some potential there. I'm just not sure if it's quite there yet, and if it's not quite there yet, then how quick are you to get out of players like James Conner, Gerald Everett, some of these other players who probably aren't going to retain too much value moving forward. So I think it'll be interesting to see how early in the season Bob decides which way he wants to go with this. I think this is one of those teams that let's wait out a few weeks. Let's see after 4 weeks. If you're sitting at 2-2, you got a decision to make. Maybe you're sitting at 3-1 or 1-3, and the decision's kind of been made for you. So yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see which way it goes.
Yeah, I agree. I was also sort of thinking it's going to be interesting to see how long until he sort of maybe pulls the plug, because as you say, it's a serious death row sort of chapter there in Chapter 1. And I think because you're going up against such seasoned campaigners in Chapter 1 with sort of John, Andy, and obviously Nick, his windows is... the room for error is a lot smaller. And I think based off that, he's going to need to play this quite cleverly. And he's already got some very good draft capital, having sort of a first and 3 seconds and then 2 firsts the following year. I think he's going to need to flip players like Tannehill. Hopefully Tannehill under center with D-Hop suddenly goes absolutely berserk in the first 3-4 weeks, which is unlikely, but it's not impossible. So players like your Tannehill, your James Connors, maybe even your Tony Pollards, who came off a great season last year, he's going to need to sort of cash these in for draft cap / possible sort of rebuild pieces. Any other chapter, I think he thinks this is his window. But being in this chapter, I think he'll have to tread carefully and make sure that he's leveraging some of his experienced veterans and trying to get good value out of them, because the other worrying point is sort of that IDP side. I'm not a fan of the players that he has there and the depth. Even at linebacker, I don't think his IDP team side is nearly good enough to compete for a playoff position, let alone sort of going all in, which I'm sure Bob will be very aware of as well. So yeah, I think he'll just sort of retool at a stage during the season. But yeah, competitive enough to be good outside of his chapter.
Yep. I think if you put him in chapter 3, he may get a little more wins based off of his different games he's going to play. But yeah, I think chapter 1 it's going to be brutal, and I think Bob's probably going to look at this and decide what he's going to do, if he's going to sell some of these assets or if he's going to try to push in, because like we talked about, he's got the draft assets to be able to do either. But a little bit of young, a little bit of old. I think this is fairly a middle of the road team. So next one they had in their rankings was they had as 5th was Andy as the Minnesota Eternals. I actually had Andy ranked as number 4, which is still not high enough for him, I guarantee it. But looking at what he's got going on, he's one of these teams that I think can be dangerous. He's got a lot of high name assets, Herbert, Eckler, Eckler's, I don't know if you saw that tweet yesterday. Eckler held a Zoom call with a bunch of other running backs. So as an Eckler owner in another league, I hope he doesn't try to do anything silly and hold out. I understand the business side of the NFL and what they're doing, but as the NFL fan and fantasy fan, I want to see him play. So Eckler, top running back, Justin Jefferson, Nick Chubb, he's got Derrick Henry, he's got he's got some bangers at running back. And then Justin Jefferson is not shabby. Even though his depth is not the best, Justin Jefferson can make up for a lot. I like his team. Like I said, I think I had him fared a little better than what they had him as, and I had him as a playoff team. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting season for Andy. Look, he obviously won it all 2 seasons ago, for a very good reason. But it still seems quite a similar team to a team that won the title 2 years ago. I think there are quite a lot of older pieces there still. Sort of really Andy's hanging on here, and Andy needs to realize if he wants to go back and win it all again, he's going to have to make some moves here that could massively jeopardize his future. So I think he needs to. I think he's in a situation now where I'm sure he's having sleepless nights deciding, does he go all in here and really go for another title, try win it all, try upgrade, maybe add another quality quarterback to just go get Kirk Cousins, go get who we sort of spoke about earlier, just add a bit more quality there at quarterback. The running backs will look after themselves, assuming they don't hold out. The wide receivers, as you say, just add maybe one extra piece there. This team is two offensive players away from being a contender. And I'm not saying they're not a contender right now. It's just we do have other teams to get to. But this team has home run hitters and just as that 3-4 running back head of Eckler, Henry, Chubb. Assume James Cook sort of breaks out a bit, but those 3 running backs, Justin Jefferson, Justin Herbert, that offense is scoring big points week in, week out. But the age thing is a bit of a concern for me because this team is 1 year away from being in not a great position. So they're either going to need to add win now pieces and hopefully go all in, or they're going to have to think about maybe consolidating. I think they're sort of in two minds. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no one can like this team as much as Andy does. And I'm sure we're all idiots for questioning his greatness. But yeah, I think my first goal, if I had this team, would be to add a receiver. I think that, I feel like Andy was talking in the DeAndre Hopkins thread the other day. He was talking about what he should be worth in a trade, and it's just some of that's just crazy to me. But I think that I worry about the volume that Hopkins is going to get. I worry about the volume that DJ Moore is going to get. I think that volume is what translates to fantasy points here. I think that Chubb, Eckler, Henry, really solid top 3 running backs. I think they're in a similar position where they're going to be really good this year, and no one's going to trade much for them because they're all at the kind of edge of the road. So I think that he's in a position where I'd be pushing the chips all in. I think that his IDP is solid. He has several really good linebackers. He has several really good defensive ends, some good safeties. So I think that if it was me, I'd be trying to add like a really high floor receiver, and maybe upgrade Carr if you can, but I'd be prioritizing receiver over anything, because Justin Jefferson can carry a lot, but I think that as good as Hopkins and DJ Moore can be, I just worry about how much, like, if either of them are going to get the ball thrown their way enough for them to kind of get the greatness that Andy obviously values them at. So that's kind of where I'm at with this one. I think there's some really good pieces. I think that pretty high floor, but I think that if he doesn't make some moves, he's gonna run into some issues very soon.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned the I'll go ahead and pull up what Tyler said. Tyler said Hopkins would get 130 plus targets. I'm glad you mentioned the target share there in Tennessee, because I actually had this I was going to pull up. So if you look at it at the Houston Oilers / Tennessee Titans, the last time a receiver got over 120 targets, I mean, tight end did it, with Delaney Walker, but last time a receiver did it was Kendall Wright almost 10 years ago, 2013. So when I first did the Mad Goat projections, Nuke didn't have a team, so I didn't really know how to fare him out. And obviously, you see that I fared him out as wide receivers at 21 or whatever it was. So I have him predicted based off of his career catch percentage, career yard per catch, and based off of what that offense is kind of show what they're going to do is him getting 115 targets, 85 receptions for 1,122 yards. So right as a middle of the road, middle of the pack wide receiver 2. I think Hopkins can be good, but I couldn't agree more that I think this team is missing one more wide receiver piece. I'm very high on Amari Cooper this year. Like, he'd be a great trade target. But as old Johnny English said, that this team is nearing the cliff, and it needs to add an asset here on offense if it wants to continue to compete. I think it's there. I just think that it's he's got to get that additional asset just to help put him over the edge a little bit.
Well, and I think the other thing that's unique about this team, just to your point about Hopkins, is I think the only way that Hopkins gets that target volume that Tyler's like dreaming of, that hurts Henry. Like, I don't see Henry getting the same volume that he gets and Hopkins getting that volume. So the fact that he has both, I just don't see a world where they're both getting the kind of volume that makes them really valuable pieces.
Yeah, I don't see him getting over 120 just because that's what Tennessee has shown us. But I think it's good. I think Hopkins being there is good for Burks. It's good for Henry. I think it's a good all-around move. Mm-hmm. And I think Hopkins, like, he makes a quarterback better. Like, you see some of the catches he did with Kyler last year. Like, he's gonna eat. He's not gonna be that wide receiver that that's getting top level targets every year like they used
for
to.
Everyone but the Eternals.
All right, next one up is the Atlanta Africans. So they had him slightly above Andy, and I actually had these two flop. I had the Africans as 5th, vice 4th, and I had Andy above them. So I look at the Africans roster, and this is the one I am talking about. This is the one I'm talking about, that if I am who was it, Rob, that owns all those damn quarterbacks, I am knocking on these 3 2024 first. Like, I'm knocking on that door, because who does he have at quarterback? Brock Purdy, Trey Lance. That's it. He is ranked as 4th in their rankings. He's ranked as 5th in my rankings, and he has one quarterback room, and that's it. I think this is a huge issue that he needs to address, and I would, if I'm Rob, or if I'm Ian, I'm like, this is where I'm going. This is the perfect marriage to fix this. But look at this roster outside of that, man. Dobbins, Gibbs, like, he's got, like, for days, he's got a great team. Kamara, DeAndre Swift, like, it's ready to go, minus that quarterback room, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it looks like it's been a tough off season for Ian. And the reason why I just say that is, as you say, I think that quarterback room is worrying. What happens if Sam Darnold ends up starting in San Francisco for the first 5 weeks? Like, it's really worrying. that quarterback room. Because Ian could be in a situation where he doesn't have a starting quarterback for the first 3-4 weeks. We don't know. We'll cross that bridge in a couple of weeks' time. Then at running back, I think in the offseason he would have been sitting there smiling away. But with Kamara's situation, yes, I know they've sort of settled, but we could well see a sort of 5-6 game ban. We could see a 2-game ban. We're not sure yet. So big question marks there. DeAndre Swift, obviously, new man in town in Philly. And look, as exciting as it is for everyone, I think everyone, or I don't know, maybe I'm not consensus, but I think I'm not convinced Philly is a better position to be for DeAndre Swift. I think, yes, it's a good offensive line, and it's a great team. But Jalen Hurts is the one that's going to be carrying sort of the red ball stuff, the sort of red zone stuff, on top of obviously your Rashard Pennies and your sort of battering rams. I think they'll sort of give Swift a bit of volume, but I think it was a step back for someone like Swift. Then at wide receiver, Kupp's coming off an injury. I love Scary Terry to bits. I've got him on my team, but the quarterback in Washington, Sam Howell, who knows? I'm a bit worried here for Ian. I don't think his team is as sexy as some say. Look, there are pieces there, but I think he's in a little bit of a battle with someone like Brad, or who knows, even someone like Byrne in that chapter. He's obviously very lucky he's in that chapter 2 at the moment, but I just can't. Look, I'll take Ian's historic record, and that's enough proof that he knows what he's doing. But to me, there are a lot of question marks around this team. And I know at wide receiver, you got Kupp, you got Metcalf, you got McLaurin and Godwin, and that should carry you. But that quarterback room and even the running backs, there are too many question marks there for this team to think I don't think they're a contender, basically. I think they're a playoff team, yes. But I just can't see this team winning it unless they sort of quarterback. What are your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're spot on. I mean, you can't feel good going into the season with this quarterback room. I think that Kupp, I think, has as good a shot as anyone at being one of the top 3-4 receivers this year. But he's also kind of older to the point that it deflates his trade value. I see some IDP pieces that I like. I think that he's probably going to win his chapter because he's in chapter 2. I think that this looks like a team to me right now that's kind of primed for not going too deep in the playoffs. I mean, you're looking really good at tight end. Have a couple of like solid wide receiver 2s after Kupp. I just don't really see the ceiling there for this team. And I think Tyler said, like, blow it up and go for 101. Like, again, the problem is you can't be as bad as those bad teams. So it's like, what, blow it up and go for like 105? Like, so I think that Ian's probably like similar to another team. I don't remember who it was. But like, I feel like he's kind of stuck with this roster at this point where like you can add some more draft capital. You can add, you can move some players for younger players, but I feel like this is a team that's probably going to end up picking somewhere between 104 and 109. And he has 3 firsts, so he's rooting against those other guys. And, there's some solid pieces here. And then Ian's had a hell of a run. So like, it's hard to hate too much on what he's done with this team. But I think that he, I don't look at this team and get too excited about what the record's going to be this year, other than like winning against shitty teams in chapter 2.
So Brad said it. Brad said that he's probably not trading those 3 firsts. And, we're not part of the DD, so we don't know that trade atmosphere that they got going on there. But the other thing that Matt, that you even said is chapter 2, like, and I think John said it too, is like he's winning it 90%. He's winning chapter 2, so he's getting into playoffs. I think he's got pieces that so he's a playoff team. He's got pieces that he can work with here. Look at those receivers: Kupp, Godwin, Cortland Sutton, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin. Like those are, Alvin Kamara. So he's got a roster that if he gets to the playoffs, which he's likely to do, can do some damage. But I think that quarterback room is definitely going to hold him back a little bit.
And Sam, before I forget, I saw you asking on the forum about where the show can go from here. And, just listening to you talk about this team and Rob's team, I feel like you have a fantasy trade matchmaker show on your hands, just telling people how to run their teams, telling them what they should be doing. You got
nobody wants to hear that, though. I appreciate that, though. So we're getting into the last three teams here. They had the Africans built pretty high. The next three teams, we all know who it's going to be. It's going to be the Africans, it's going to be the Tyrants, and it's going to be the Molossus. So I'm gonna bury the lead. The Africans, they had number 3. I'm sorry, not the Africans.
Dragons.
The Dragons, they had number 3. I know that Johnny English is in the chat. So, buddy, I got you winning the whole damn thing. I got you as number 1 out of the DD. They had you ranked as number 3. I don't see why they see it. We'll get to the Tyrants. We'll get to Tom. I don't know if Tom's viewing or not. He'll maybe view later. But I think you have the best team in DD right now the way it's built. I do think you have you have 2 good quarterbacks with Joe Burrow and Deshaun Watson, and then I'm a Clayton Tune owner, so I'm I'm hoping that Clayton Tune actually plays and he's the guy there as well. But you got some issues there addressed there with depth, for bye weeks or injuries. But I think this roster, just look at everybody else, Josh Jacobs, assuming he doesn't hold out, Stephon Diggs, Kelsey, Conklin, CeeDee, Garrett Wilson, Marquise Brown, Jerry Jeudy. He's got pieces. He's got good depth at wide receiver. I like this team a lot.
Yeah, strong at receiver, strong at tight end. Or when I say strong at tight end, it's obviously Kelsey there. I think Okonkwo took a little bit of a hit with D-Hop in town, but yeah, Kelsey's an uber player, great receivers. Running back, as you say, a little bit shallow, especially with all this flirting around, sort of sitting out. I think if Josh Jacobs does, absolute worst case scenario, sit out.
But he's got Zamir White, so he's got the handcuff.
Yeah, he's got the handcuff, exactly. And I love Zeus more than anything. I think Zamir White was an absolute bulldozer at Georgia, and was he at Georgia or was he at Alabama? I think it was one of the big boys. But I think as well, and as you say, if Jamal Williams could well take hold of some of those red zone touches as well in New Orleans. But yeah, this team is the first sort of serious team, and I do think they're a tier above what we've seen so far. The IDP side there is just ticking so many boxes. I think Brad just said, you got Jeffrey Simmons. Those 3 DTs are putting up big points. The defensive inside, you got Nick Bosa putting up big points. I think, that IDP is going to carry this team, and then the offense is just going to be that cherry on top because there's enough depth there. They're going to be very close. You put them as the winner. Let's see what the other 2 teams still have in store, but they're going to be up there. They're going to be sniffing around the championship game. What are your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, this is a damn good team. I think I don't know how y'all keep letting them do this.
I don't either.
I don't get it. I think the IDP is really strong too. I think if I had to find a concern with this team, I think that what I'd probably say is that your green cell filling of Tyler Conklin is a little bit misleading. Well, I know it's because he's top 12, but
Aaron Rodgers, baby, what are you talking about?
Yeah, but that number next to him is 167 points on the year, and so I think
big fall off.
Yeah, so and then when I'm looking through the depth on over here, I mean, Antonio Gibson, he's having his annual hype train. This is the year, Matt. Lean into it. Listen, this is the year. Maybe we'll see. I mean, I'll obviously be happy, but outside of the starters, I think that there's some maybes here. I think that Deshaun Watson looked real bad last year, and who knows how he's going to come out and play in Cleveland. So I think that he has a real good starting lineup right there. But I think right after you get past Marquise Brown, once we get to injuries, buys, I don't see too much depth here that is you're feeling too good about starting. I mean, I think the fortunate thing is no one does after you're getting 11 starters deep on offense. So yes, I'm like trying to pick holes in what's obviously a real damn good team. But yeah, I mean, these defensive tackles are great. He has really good defensive ends, some solid linebackers. So I think John's he's gonna be there at the end. He's gonna be one of those teams when we're doing our playoff previews that he's gonna be compared to the Commanders. That's just like a dominating team in the league with that are just like no one knows how they keep doing it year in. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, he'll be there at the end. So it just really depends how his question marks play out and if his team stays healthy.
If I was jumping on that bandwagon proposal that you just suggested, Matt, about trade matchmaking, I would have a sneaky suspicion if I was the mighty Johnny English here to speak to Byrne and see if someone like a Hurts and a Najee Harris might be tradable, and you've got your firsts. Here's maybe a Deshaun Watson. Here's maybe an Antonio Gibson, and maybe a bit of wide receiver depth. Because you add some big hitters there, as you said, the QB, the questions around Watson and the RB depth, but I think everywhere else this team looks good and looks set for the big time.
I traded in another league Watson, a first, and something else for Hurts, so it can be done.
Yes.
So if I think that's a great example of take some of those question marks out of this team and just really like lock it in for another deep run.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm pretty high on Watson. I'm pretty high on Gibson, so that kind of reflects in my rankings. But I think this is a good team that is obviously going to be there at the end, like you guys said. So next up is the number 2 team, the Titletown Tyrants. I had him as number 3 because obviously, like we just talked about, I had Johnny English going above the last 2 teams. You listen to the Rate My League guys, and they talk about this team, and I think they get like enamored by the running backs. You got Saquon, you got CMC, you got Jonathan Taylor. Like that's damn sexy, right? And then ETN, and I went ahead and put Gordon on his roster that he just picked up the other day because I think it's funny. Because outside of those 3 guys, you look at wide receiver, he's got Jamar Chase and Debo. But I mean, I've never been one that really counted again, that can count on Mike Williams because of all his injuries. But this team has, in my opinion, it lacks the depth. It lacks the ability to be there at the end. And I'll show you here what I'm talking about is so on the offensive side, we start 10 players. So 2 quarterbacks is ideal, what you want to do. And his quarterback situation, he's got Aaron Rodgers. And we all know how I feel about Kyler. I don't know if we know if Kyler's going to play or not. If Kyler doesn't play, then his next best quarterback is going to be Baker Mayfield, who may or may not even have the job. It may go to Kyler Trask. I mean, Tampa Bay's issue is they don't know what they're doing. But look at all the other quarterbacks he's got with Winston, Zach Wilson, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Marcus Mariota. He's just got a bunch of backups. He's hoping for an injury. But outside of that, this is what he's got going on. He's got CMC, who played a full season last year, but had 2 years previous to that where he only played 8 and 12 games. Barkley played a full season and then had three years where he missed games. And then we know Barkley's got an issue right now with his contract stuff. JT missed games. Like you see everybody that's in these top 6 that I have as his top 10 outside of quarterbacks. They missed lots of games. Like for everything to fall right for Nick, he needs no season injuries. He needs no holdouts. He needs everybody to stay healthy. I like the starting lineup. I think I understand where they're coming off, but I think there's some obvious holes here, and I think he's going to be in some trouble.
Go ahead.
I mean, I appreciate the amount of extra time you put in to hate on Nick's roster. Like, props to you. I do just a question for you. Just looking at the screenshot that I see here, I noticed that Kittle and Debo didn't make the starting lineup here. Are you projecting lower numbers because of injuries for them?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, projecting injuries is tough. I think that
I'm doing it based off of like what I just showed the last slide. That there's a history of it. I don't want to project injuries, but at the same time, like I'm not projecting injuries. I'm going off of what they've showed so far in the league. And so far in the league, they haven't had a full seasons to be able to accumulate the amount of stats, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. I think that, he has some really solid running backs and Jamar Chase on this team. That's what the core of this team is. I think that, Aaron Rodgers is a douchebag. So he has that going for him. So good for him. I think that, Njoku, I see him getting like all this love this offseason, but he's someone else who's just like never done anything. And Watson, like, I don't know. I can't think of a tight end that he's like really carried to a real good season unless I'm just blanking on it. So, I mean, listen, this team has a real high floor when all those running backs and Chase and Evans and all them are playing. And
Yeah, you gotta warn me next time.
But yeah, I mean, listen, if you're into rooting, I mean, it's like it's Rodgers and Kyler. I mean, like, I think that's the thing. Like, do you even want to root for this team? Like, no one wants to root for these guys. So I think that, like, if you're into like unlikable pricks, like, great, this is the team for you. But I'm sure that he'll win some games this year, and he'll talk about how great it is. But it's not. I wouldn't have fun rooting for this team. But I mean, listen, those running backs are solid. Chase is the man. ETN. I'm a little curious about how running back plays out in Jacksonville, but I feel like Evans. I'm not sure how he's going to do with Baker. Mike Williams. I actually like Williams this year, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's I don't really want to root for this team, so I'm projecting what all the reasons that's going to not be good, but it has some good pieces.
Yeah, look, I think they do have a decent team, as you say, but I think without that sort of 2024 first round draft cap, and obviously in the situation where they're playing the Dragons twice and the Eternals twice, and even Bobby Dazzler's slashes twice, I think you've got a situation now where one of these big three is going to be upset. And I'm including Andy's Eternals in that sort of big three because it is a decent team with your sort of your Henrys and your strong running back room as well. And this team has got, as you said, Matt, a very high floor, a good IDP side. But we saw my sort of experience with it last year with Nick and the PP when he came down to sort of look after a team, and that team sort of outscored many teams, but they lost many games. So it is sort of projecting injuries again, and it's a bit of the luck of the green and sort of where you sort of see your side. There's enough there. It will be competitive. It's expecting this is the window. Because as soon as A-Rod leaves, or if that sort of doesn't go well, then the window's closing pretty quickly for the side. Another sort of season-ending injury for the Tyrants. But look, it's a good side. They need to make it happen. They need to probably do a few more trades. It's not going to win the whole thing, but it's going to be up there.
Yeah, so just to clarify, like Debo and Kittle are the ones that are missing off of that starting lineup I got on the right-hand side. And the reason is it's not because I don't think that they have that value. It's because based off of when I ran the projections, I took the history of what they've done so far each year in each obviously in the San Francisco offense with Shanahan, and they don't have full seasons to show for, right? Because they've not been healthy. So I'm not projecting injuries for them. But at the same time, like I'm trying to project out to 16 games when they're not really given 16 games, if that makes sense. So having those two as your depth pieces is nice. But I think Nick's got a good starting roster. I just think that where he's going to get into issues is the depth, and if injuries do strike, and like I said, he's got some pieces that there's been injuries throughout. And then we all know how I feel about Kyler, and it's not trying to be mean about it. I just think, hey, if Kyler does not play, he's got Aaron Rodgers and a bunch of warm bodies. And in a Superflex league, that's tough.
We're not supposed to be mean about it? Oh, my bad.
To clarify, so everybody knows, because I know it's woke nation out here nowadays. Like, Nick and I are really good friends. We text like every other day. He drinks like a girl, but he's a good buddy of mine, so we give shit to each other, but it's all in good fun. So
one thing I'm just curious what you guys' thoughts are on this. Just I see this pop up sometimes. So do you think that having McCaffrey, Debo, and Kittle all as big pieces, like all in the 49ers offense, do you worry about that capping the upside of a team on a weekly basis?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think in some instances it works, but I think that far diversified with sort of a tight end wide receiver, running back, I tend to see sort of Debo and CMC clashing more than sort of Kittle. But I think Kittle's sort of his own like unique beast. He'll have big weekends and then go quiet for 2-3 weekends here and have big breakout weekends. I think Kittle's sort of floor is a lot lower than the other two. But yeah, that is something that, as you say, look, obviously you want to play these guys the weekend that the 49ers are on a bye. But the reality is having that many players from one offense, even if it is a serviceable offense, does sort of cap the sort of ceiling really in terms of points per player really.
I know, Matt. I know you play in the DFS as well, so I know you've read and you've seen all the studies about how it is to link up the quarterback and wide receiver, and like how that when they hit, like it's double points and everything. But yeah, I agree. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, or not, he not the quarterback. Sorry, running back, wide receiver, tight end that he's got like this. Like it's there's going to be weeks where it may be beneficial, but there's going to be weeks where one or two may do something and the other one's not, and he's going to most likely have all three of them in his starting lineup every week. So,
yeah, I mean, it really just takes away the upside of all of them scoring touchdowns, and that's really the bread and butter in it. So, like, how many weeks are all three of them or two of the three of them going to be the ones who get the touchdowns for the 49ers, especially with, depending on like what happens to quarterback and everything. So,
yeah, this is an instance where I think that correlation is going to be negative, vice positive. So. All right, the last one we had is Tom and Melosas. They had him ranked as number 1. I had him ranked as number 2. Tom's got a damn sexy roster, and it looks like he has sold his soul to get it because he has no first, no second next year, and no first and fifth. But I mean, so you said Patrick Mahomes as quarterback 5 was bold. It's because I got Lamar, man. I'm high on Lamar this year with that offense, what they're bringing in with that offensive coordinator from Georgia, like Lamar, Aaron Jones, Tyreek, Hawk, like that's sexy. Tua, everybody knows I'm a Tua fan. This is obviously like not projecting injuries. Tua stays healthy. What he was able to show, what he did last year, when he stayed healthy. Ramondre, even though I think that New England has shown their cards that they are going to bring in another running back, so I think that's going to hurt Ramondre. AJ Brown is his number 2 wide receiver. Like that's ridiculous. Amon-Ra St. Brown is number 3. Olave is number 4. Like this starting lineup. Like there's no holes in it. It's sexy. What do you guys think?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I mean this is a damn good starting lineup. I don't want to poke holes in your system live, Sam, but I'm curious why Lamar doesn't get that same injury treatment as some of the ones we were looking at previously. Considering his last 2 years, he's only played 12 games. How that projection comes out so high.
Or arguably Tua as well, but they are Sam's favorites.
I will tell you that I do believe my rankings are a little biased in quarterbacks. I think there's something off in my formula where it ranks quarterbacks higher than everybody else. So I think that the median it's above that right now. But I do feel like Lamar, with the new system they want to bring in, which is making him pass more, the addition of Odell and Zay Flowers, all that stuff went in it. It wasn't just like the injuries; it was what he was able to do with the time that he had, and then the system I'm projecting he's going to be in. I think Lamar's going to have a banger.
Ain't nothing wrong with biased rankings. I'm all about it. You just got.
I tried to take all the bias out. I really did.
Got to own it. No, don't take the bias out. Lean into the bias, because that's what we're here for. That's how you get the clicks and the likes. But I think that I mean, listen, I like Tua a lot. I think that the starting lineup is solid. I think that. Yeah, I mean, Hawkinson, Hill, Aaron Jones. Yeah, I mean, I think he's set up to be right there at the end. I think that his running back situation, it feels a little more ceiling than floor. I think that, Aaron Jones, he has his boom weeks. Ramondre Stevenson, he looks to be in good shape, but, Patriots running backs. he has both Aaron Jones and Dillon, which I feel like, again, just kind of like caps the upside, although it is a handcuff situation. But, I feel like it's better to have shots at owning as many backfields as you can. I don't know about the depth at running back, unless I'm missing some. Oh, Dameon Pierce, right? Yeah, I'm lower on him than I should be, but I feel like I think that there's some good ceiling plays there, but I think that's some of that's a little sketchier than some of the teams we were just looking at before this. But no, I mean, like ceiling wise, like if you look at Sun God, Olave, Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, no, I think I tend to sort of agree with Matt. You there?
Yeah, I can hear. I think Matt he's working on some stuff.
No, don't worry. So yeah, like I tend to agree. I did a little quick look at the sort of fixture schedule in the DD, and I see that the Mighty Molossus are up against Nick's Tyrants in week 9. And week 9, weirdly, we've obviously just spoken about it, but that is the week that the San Francisco 49ers are on a bye. So yeah, I just sort of looking into it. I think Tom's Molossus are going to be flying high. They're also in one of the easier chapters there in the DD, playing the Mayhem and the Muskies twice in a year. Obviously, Rob's Degenerates are finally sort of on the mend and on sort of the rebuild positive trajectory. But you've got 6 relatively straightforward matchups for Tom. And then it is a case of sort of on the weekend, this team should fly into the playoffs, arguably with the best record in the regular season, I think. So should lock up a sort of first week bye. But it is, as you said, we're looking through the team, assuming Lamar stays fit and Tua, you've got elite, you've got Pickett there as very solid QB3 in out of those 3. Running back, as you said, maybe a little bit shallow, and but those wide receivers are home run hitters: Tyreek, AJ Brown, Chris Olave, Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's a good roster, and this team could really push, I think, the Dragons when we get to the playoffs. I think this team redraft wise is up there, and I think defensively as well, with the players like sort of your Nick Boltons, even your Chinnan Nwosu's at defensive end, assuming Chase Young comes back. I think there's enough here, and the Molossus and the Dragons to me are the favorite for the sort of the title game.
Can you hear me again?
Yeah, back in.
All right. I've dropped some like real good insight earlier, but that's behind a paywall, so y'all have to contribute my rankings for that. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that something funky happened with I think the dynasty rankings that they did, because I don't see how this can be the number 1 dynasty team with no picks, and some of the other like older running backs and situations that they have here. But no, I mean, it's a damn good team. It's another one of the ones that's going to be there towards the end if everyone stays healthy. I think that I'm curious what moves there are to make with no picks if things do start going south with some of those running backs. I think that he has the wide receiver depth to probably make some moves there. But no, I mean, it's a good team. So I'm curious to see how everything plays out with these guys.
Yeah, I know Tom was interested in hearing like So everybody knows we're just consumers of what the Rate My League guys go. And then, Nate and I, we get on here trying to talk about the league, semantics and what we know about the league and how we feel about the rankings. So they had Tom as Dynasty 3 out of all 48 teams in the main league, or so out of all 24 teams in the main league, and Dynasty 1 in the DD. But then when they ranked everybody up, they had Tom at number 5 with Nick at 4 and John at 3. And he was curious as what the disparity was and why that was going on. So I dug into this is just me like guessing, right? Because I dug into when you do the Rate My League guys, they give you a PDF, and then Matt obviously paid for the podcast. But I was looking at what else they had that was different, and they had Tom as his bench redraft value was lower than Nick's and John's, which I think we've kind of seen that. And like outside his top 5 wide receivers, there's like, you're relying on guys like Hunter Renfrow, Tyler Boyd, which I think there's a good target distribution in Cincinnati, but Damian Pierce, which I'm higher on than more people than most people, but then his redraft value, his bench redraft value is lower. His IDP value is lower than Nick's and John's. So I think that's kind of what got those two the nod over him in the total ranking, because they had John's bench redraft value like 30 points higher, and his IDP value, which when we looked at it, was the second in the league. And I think that's what kind of helped make my my observation that he was going to be the top team in DD.
Yeah, I think I agree.
All right, so that is how they ranked 12-1, and that's kind of how we've gone through each one. I got a couple more slides we're going to go through. This is what the Rate My League guys did and what my rankings had for both TT and DD. So just all out in one, you can see where they had it. You can see in DD, I had the bottom three being the same. I had Brad lower. I had the the Degenerates a little higher, and it kind of shuffled up from there, with John being the top guy, Tom being second, Nick being third. I wish I could have ranked Nick lower just because of my own personal bias against Nick.
More biased.
Yeah. So, that was that. And then I thought you guys see anything, crazy with any of this stuff, or any overall thoughts before I move on to the next slide?
Pigskins too low. And honestly, if we're being honest, I think that Derek's ranked a little bit too high here. So,
yeah, no, I think that's a pretty spot on. I think it'll be. I think Bob's team is better than seventh, but at the same time, because he's in death row, I think he's going to be there and thereabouts. Maybe a sort of best of the rest sort of candidate. And yeah, I think Ian and Andy, it's going to be interesting because both of those teams could well see themselves in the top two if they just make the right moves and sort of add in the right places.
So this is what I'm excited about. It's been at least a year, I think maybe two, since we really had a race for pink. But we are going to have a race for pink this year. It's going to be the Silver Ballers, the Pigskins, the Muskies, the Red Knights, even though I know Sty's going to do everything he can not to get there, and then the Oysters. Those are the bottom 5 teams out of all the 24 teams. I just wanted to put like the best starting lineups I could all together and have you guys look at them. So there's no secret. Matt is doing what he can to collapse for Caleb because, like we already talked about in this episode, Derek is there's an insulated value with Derek being as shitty as he is right now, because you can go for that number 1 pick without having to worry about being pink. But Matt, buddy, I think you're in dangerous water.
I'm okay. If it happens, it happens. I mean, it's fortunately there's like no funny names to be made out of Pigskins.
Oh, there's tons. There's tons.
There's literally nothing you can do that's funny about Pigskins. So, but no, I mean, listen.
Foreskin? No, foreskin's not good.
Oh,
that's just gross. But no, I mean,
that was off the top of my head. Like you gave 45 other people like time, they're gonna come up with something.
I know. Well, I think that was the obvious one, but I think that I put them next to each other. I'm looking down this list, and I like what's on the Pigskin side versus the Silver Baller side on quite a lot of these spots. So I think what he has going is that TT is just better than DD, and that I think that it's going to be harder for me to pull out some wins than for him to win against some of the other shitty teams in DD. So listen, if I end up pink because TT is just a better conference, there are bigger problems in life.
I think, I should have verified before the show, but I think I remember it's week 5 is when the Silver Ballers face the Muskies, and that's whatever week it is. That's the week you got to watch, because if the Silver Ballers fall to the Muskies, it's done. It's an 0-12 season. Like, wrap it. It's over. Like, so I will be honest, when I look at this, I see Trevor Lawrence and Justin Jefferson just stand out. They're going to get you enough points, in my opinion, to still be above. This is how I have them ranked, in my opinion. Yeah, the Silver Ballers can be dead last. 24th out of 24th. Pigskins 23rd. Muskies 22nd. Red Knights 21st, and then Oysters 20th.
You got to add the draft capital row here just so I feel a little better. All this red is hurting my soul.
Your draft capital is like ridiculous.
Yeah, it's through the roof. Yeah.
All right, Nate, you got anything to add to the slide or?
Yeah, not quite. I think your quarterback room, Matt, is what's going to keep you away from that pink. I think just with Trevor Lawrence, Justin Jefferson, Russell Wilson, that should be enough. And with those pieces, even on the defensive side of things, Nick Bosa, Shaq Thompson, Zadarius Smith. I think
he's trying to sell them all for force right now. So.
Yeah, well, it's probably the right thing to do. The thing is, it's always going to be close. But I think as you said, Sam, that week 5, Muskie's Super Suckers silver ball this game is going to be very interesting because as soon as Derek locks up that pink, I think the Pigskins are going to climb into that selling off everything they have. To get more draft cap, but no, I think
I'm pretty sure I've climbed into that already.
Yeah. No, I think it's going to be a good race.
I went and verified it's week 8. This week 8 is when the matchup's going to happen. But this is going to be fun, man. This is it's been at least a year, like I said, that we had a good race for pink. I think it's going to provide good content for Tom to be able to put some gifts and some just analysis on what's going on with the very last team. So it's always fun. But that's it, man. That's the show. That's the Pigskin Positional Rankings. That is, we went through every conference, the RR, DD, RR, PP, TT, and DD in that order. I appreciate all the folks that have been tuning in and been commenting in the comment section. We appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate Matt, you being here with me and Nate. Nate, I always appreciate you.
Always.
Yeah, man. Thanks, guys.
No, cheers, Sam. Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, buddy. And appreciate everybody, and we'll see you guys later.